Hello guys and welcome back to Lexalexus. We are carrying on with score predictions. We've got a midweek special this week, predicting week 14. After this game week, we've got one more game week during the weekend, and then we've got our November international break. So strap in guys, we've got a really busy week on hand with two videos. If you guys enjoy these score predictions videos, please do show your support by liking, subscribing and sharing. All of that really does help, and hyping the video as well really does help the channel as well. The subscriber getting the shout out today, and apologies if I do mispronounce your name, is Kadiso Thomas Cabaswele. Thank you so much for subscribing to the channel and showing your support to fellow content creators of the championship as well, which is also great to see as well. If you do subscribe to the channel, it's likely your name will also be read out in the next video. Without any further ado, I don't want to waste any time. Let's go straight into week 14 and I'll give you my reaction to what happened in week 13. Start things off with Birmingham going up against Millwall. It was certainly a good day to be a Birmingham fan in the championship this weekend. Their biggest home win of the season so far, beating Portsmouth by 4-0. And what was even more impressive by that win was the fact that they had 4 different goal scorers too. So a brilliant win for Birmingham to pick up into this game, and it's a result I've been waiting for. So hopefully this, for Birmingham fans' sake, can carry their season forwards. Millwall still doing relatively well in the season, although they will probably be a bit disappointed. In fact, they will be disappointed that the fact that they didn't pick up all 3 points against Oxford. A 96th minute equaliser from Oxford and Placheta denies Millwall 3 points. That would have been a huge 3 points considering Middlesbrough and Coventry both lost in the weekend as well. So bit of an opportunity missed for Millwall there. They'll probably thinking that they should have got 3 points in the way that they did. I mean, it was a good game actually. Gary Rowett really made his Oxford side really competitive in that game, and it was a real battle of, you know, just the midfields and in terms of taking their chances, and it ended up being a really entertaining draw. This encounter is very interesting though. And I know Birmingham have not been perfect at home. They have slipped up a couple of times at home so far this season, dropping some silly points. Millwall on the road as a whole are very, very strong. It was a rare exception when they didn't win in their last away game against Oxford. But in general, what we've seen in a general pattern is that Millwall got a very strong away record. And I think they will be going into this midweek game wanting a response from that game. As a prediction, a draw wouldn't be surprising to me, but I'm going to be a bit brave and I'm going to back the team in form, and to me that is still Millwall. Seems a bit harsh after Birmingham had a brilliant result at home last time out. Gosh, yeah, I'm going to go for a Millwall 2-1 win, but honestly, a draw between these sides two would not surprise me whatsoever. Let me know what you think in the comments. Next up, we've got Bristol City versus Blackburn. Now, they could not have had different results if they even tried. Bristol City were in the receiving end of a 5-1 defeat against a top 6 clash against Stoke City. It was a very strange result, but we're going to talk about the 3 players who have scored a championship hat-trick last weekend. It was absolutely bonkers, the amount of individual striker performances, but they were just in the wrong end of it, just could not cope with Stoke's intensity and offered, unfortunately, very little. But they are back at home, and I do think they have generally been quite strong at home. But they're facing a Blackburn side with a bit of momentum on their side now. Back-to-back wins against Southampton and Leicester. Maybe that gives the impression of how poor these two sides have been. But one thing I will say about Blackburn, which is still pretty much the case this season, against the sides who I've been expecting to do really well this season, you know, the parachute teams or the teams right up there in the championship, Blackburn got a pretty good record, and I would say if their game against Ipswich went ahead full 90 minutes, I think they would have beaten them as well. And that's against all 3 year 1 parachute payment teams. So Blackburn certainly know how to get their way around those games. And I certainly would say Bristol City should be within that calibre. but it's hard to say if Blackburn will get a result. I honestly feel Bristol City will be keen to get a response. Prediction for this game, I'm going to go for a 2-0 victory to Bristol City. I just have a funny feeling that they'll be keen to get something here, and it's just more or less a question mark of whether Blackburn can maintain that intensity. So I'm going to say no, but I really hope they prove me wrong. But I'm going to go for a 2-0 win to Bristol City. Next up, we've got Charlton versus West Brom. Interesting encounter this time around. So Charlton were involved in a home draw against Swansea City. Did take the lead in that game, but they conceded an equaliser less than 10 minutes after Charlie Kelman originally got the lead for Charlton. West Brom with another disappointing result, and it's actually brought a little bit of pressure on Ryan Mason now. I do find a lot of championship clubs are putting managers under a lot of pressure, and there is this debate whether our fans are too spoiled, entitled, but a lot of the time the championship is such a brutal league, and when there's promises being made of trying to do well and they're not being delivered, understandably there's going to come with pressure. Now, I don't think Ryan Mason should have been expected to be someone who would hit the ground running, but I just think West Brom as a club are a club with very high standards in this division, and I think they are falling slightly below it. It was a very disappointing draw, a 0-0 draw against Sheffield Wednesday, which certainly at this moment of time look a little bit cut adrift in the bottom of the championship. So they'll be wanting a response here, but West Brom on the road haven't been very strong. Honestly, here with this game, I think it might be Charlton's, you know. They are still flirting with the idea of being in the top 6, Charlton. And I think a good result here will reignite those little speculations that they could be around this position of the table by the next international break. As a prediction, I feel this will be low scoring, so I'm going to go for a 1-0 victory to Charlton. As I said, I think it'll be low scoring, and as a result, I'm just going to go for a 1-0, and I think I'm going to edge it for Charlton. They're the team I'm a little bit more optimistic going into this game. Next up, we've got Derby versus Hull. Now, this is tough because these are two in-form sides playing against each other here. Derby, who've won 3 consecutive games in a row, have now given themselves a huge amount of breathing space now between them and the bottom 3. They're looking more and more comfortable and more confident by each game week. It's amazing what 1 or 2 results can do for your club, and 3 wins in a row is certainly making things look a lot more optimistic for this Derby County side. It was a good win on the road against Sheffield United. Carlton Morris, one of the 3 strikers who scored a hat-trick over the weekend. He got a hat-trick with 1 penalty and 2 non-penalty goals in the end. So I was thinking about Morris actually, that he actually had a really good run at the start of the season. Then I think he had a period out with injury, if I'm right, and then now he's back and he's back to full fitness. He's now putting in the goals again, and it's certainly showing Derby the importance of him being match fit. But Hull have done well. They've really have. I actually correctly predicted that Hull would beat Norwich by 2-0, which I'm quite pleased about. Joe Gelhardt again on the score sheet. He's having a really good season, and I'm pleased in the way that his return to Hull is going as well as I thought it would. As a prediction, this is so tough because Hull, as we know, they've won 4 games out of their last 5 and unbeaten in their last 5 games. But Derby are winning 3 in a row. Just makes this really hard. And honestly, I can't edge any of them. So I'm going to compromise and I'm going to go for a draw. Maybe a bit predictable by my end, but I'm just trying to play it safe. I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw. I would love to be brave and back one of them, but I think as it stands, I really respect what they're doing at the moment. They're doing really well with their form, and I think I will naturally complement that by keeping their unbeaten streaks going. So I'm going to go for a draw. Let me know what you think in the comments. Now, a game that's actually going to be a bit of a mid-table clash is Ipswich versus Watford. And I say a mid-table clash, they're going to be 9th versus 10th. A win for either one of these sides puts them a really big boost of getting into the top 6 by the last game week before the international break. Both sides with an epic 3-goal margin win. Let's talk about Watford first, because they beat 2nd place Middlesbrough at Vicarage Road. Kierkegaard with 2 goals, and he's been quite hot and cold in terms of finding the back of the net, Kierkegaard. But this is the first goals, I think, under Javi Gracia. And especially against the quality of Middlesbrough, proving to be really consistent so far this season. That's certainly no mean feat. He's done really, really well to get those goals. And actually, I think now with that being a really good win for Watford, I do think they are going to improve game on game. And I did feel, even when they lost to Coventry, I did say it in my predictions, Watford look very dangerous going forward. They just weren't clinical, but they were clinical last time around against Middlesbrough, and they finally got their reward for it. But a team who was also clinical was Ipswich. Literally clinical from Marcelino Nunes' point of view. 2 free kicks and 2 goals. Absolutely unbelievable. And 2 very different free kick goals as well. And yeah, Nunes has been another player that's not scored many goals for Ipswich since he joined for bitter rivals Norwich City. They could really do with him at the moment. But ultimately, he brought an impact when he was on the pitch. So I was really, really pleased for him that he managed to get the goals. And George Hurst as well, just for confidence sake, because I think he plays well when he's very, very confident, and I don't think he's been necessarily the most confident player for Ipswich in the past couple of game weeks or so. They're back at Portman Road, Ipswich, which they have been stronger on home turf compared to away from home. But Watford are a very good side, and I can't underestimate how well they look going forward at the moment. So I'm just thinking with Ipswich, his consistency hasn't been particularly strong, and when they feel like they turn a corner, they just collapse basically. And their last home midweek game, as you remember, was a 3-0 defeat against Charlton. It was a disaster. So maybe it's sort of exposing the fact that the squad, despite it being pretty big in quality and depth, is not being able to cope with the busy schedule. And I think because of that, I'm not too optimistic of Ipswich winning this game. But as a prediction, I'm going to go for a draw. 1-1 draw. I think they both can offer a little bit of quality going forward, and I think they'll cancel each other out. Next up, we have got Leicester versus Middlesbrough. What a game this is turning out to be. So, Leicester, who were looking pretty comfortable in the Championship, have now only just gone and lost 3 games in a row. 3 games in a row. That is unbelievable. And their latest one against Blackburn, Johnson with 2 goals for Blackburn. And I said in my predictions, Blackburn beat Leicester away from home on the final day, of 2 seasons ago. I should have gone with my gut and backed Blackburn, who can beat Leicester, but clearly I didn't. I didn't back them, but I should have done. And Leicester struggling a little bit at the moment. Cifuentes under quite a significant bit of pressure, as so many clubs in that region of the table, especially with Leicester being the 14th. If they do have a points deduction looming, that could certainly not mean a lot of positive news for them as well. So still lots of uncertainty of where Leicester's competitiveness is going to be this season, but they're certainly not really delivering on the pitch. That's going to give me a lot of confidence in them at the moment. They are facing a Middlesbrough side, which ultimately they have lost 2 games in their last 4 matches, but they have still been picking up the odd point. I think they're still just about doing 2 points a game at this moment of time, but a win here would be crucial. And they missed a big opportunity, Middlesbrough, to at least join the same amount of points as Coventry since they finally lost a game against Wrexham. So yeah, a little bit disappointing. And then what has just happened just recently, obviously, we've had some managerial sackings, and one of them has been from the Premier League, Vitor Pereira. And what I have heard is that former Wolves player Rob Edwards has been linked for the job. It does feel like at the moment, I think it's Gary O'Neill and then it's Rob Edwards as the second favourite. If Rob Edwards does repeat history, leave a club halfway through the season to join another club which he deems as higher ambitions, obviously it kind of worked out for him getting Luton promoted, but for the Premier League's sake, you'd argue that probably Middlesbrough are going to be more likely in the Prem next year than Wolves are at this moment of time. So he's got to be very careful with it. And what I've been really impressed with Rob Edwards is sort of like the unity he has had with that Middlesbrough squad. And I think if he leaves now, it just kind of makes all of his words just seem like hot air and just not meaningful. So I kind of hope he stays on. I really do think there's a good combination now of managerial personnel and players. So I hope nothing happens in that front, but that's no guarantee. When a Premier League club comes calling, a lot of managers don't tend to say no to that. So maybe that speculation could distract things going into this game. As a prediction, Leicester at home. So I think they could do okay, Leicester. I'm going to go for a 2-2 draw. I have a strange feeling that it's going to be a high-scoring game, but I think both teams will be able to cancel each other out. So I'll go for high-scoring 2-2 draw. Let me know what you think of the speculation and that score in the comments. Next up is Oxford versus Stoke. And I'd arguably say a positive result for both sides. Oxford, I've already mentioned, got a 96th minute equaliser. Better late than never, isn't it? But that draw for Oxford is still keeping them out of the bottom three. You got to give them lots of praise that actually they're looking competitive again. They looked a little bit dead and buried in the first 6 games of the season, but they are now turning a bit of a corner, Oxford, which I'm pleased to see. I mean, if Oxford were going to go down, and obviously we won't know until game week 46 if they do, but at least Oxford are showing me signs that they are still showing that competitive edge in the Championship. And it's going to be needed against the Stoke City side, who for me were the major winners of last weekend, because you've got the entire top 3 dropping points, and Stoke with that amazing 5-1 win over Bristol City meant they overtook Bristol City and really are now putting on the pressure on the other teams around them as well. Divi Mbamba, by the way, with a hat-trick. So he's another one of the players that scored a hat-trick this weekend. Unbelievable performance on his part here. As a prediction, I think Stoke could get something there, which won't be a happy return for Gary Rowett against his former managed club. Yeah, I'm going to go for a 2-1 away scoreline to Stoke. I will give Oxford a goal and a little bit of respect here, because I do think Oxford have been very competitive at the Kassam so far. But I think Stoke are showing so many different ways of getting round with different opposition. So I think this will just be a too tough of a game for Oxford to get something there, but I could be wrong, of course. Let me know what you think in the comments. Next up is Coventry and Sheffield United. Okay, I'm quite excited for this one. How will Coventry respond? Their first defeat of the season. They made it close in the end. They ended 3-2, but quite honestly, Wrexham could have run away with that game with the chances that they were missing. And we will give praise to Wrexham when we do go round to them. But what we have seen, and I did warn people, and some people did not like me saying this, but Coventry defensively have just been shipping more chances and a little bit more goals recently. And whilst they didn't concede many against Watford, and they only conceded 1 against Portsmouth, one thing what I was trying to portray, and I didn't really portray very well, is that they're conceding more chances now. And when you do concede more chances, naturally what that means is that you will concede more goals. Now, I do understand they didn't have their full strength back line, Coventry, to injuries at the moment. I think Bobby Thomas was supposed to play, but he couldn't, unfortunately. And there could be a chance that maybe Coventry won't have their full strength back line again to this game. But they're facing for what I would say is a pretty blunt Sheffield United side at the moment. It's another defeat for them, a 3-1 home defeat to Derby. It leaves them in the relegation zone as well. So pressure is going to be on. Now, Callum O'Hare, I think he's going to play. So that will make things very interesting to see if he could get something and haunt his former club. But as a prediction, I think Coventry back at the CBS, I think they'll get a win. As a prediction, I'm going to go for a 3-1 scoreline to Coventry. Yeah, I think they'll go back to winning ways. And yeah, it'll just be a true sign to see if they are going to be worthy champions. If they do not pick up a win in this game and they start going on a winless run, then all the credentials that I think a lot of us are saying of Coventry being, dominant and leaders of the championship could very much erase with the fact that Middlesbrough, Stoke and Millwall is still right on their tails. Next up, we've got Preston versus Swansea. It is 2 teams in white facing against each other here, and both with somewhat positive results. More so for Preston. They managed to beat Southampton by 2-0, and I will speak a little bit about Southampton very, very soon with the recent news they've had. Swansea, they drew to Charlton, as I said. Adam Idah getting the only goal in that one for Swansea. So good for him to get a goal down. I think he scored quite recently as well. So it looks like that the form is now starting to creep up with Adam Idah now, which is absolutely great. But Preston are literally no side to mess around with. They've picked up some really big points home and away against 2 teams around them and teams above them in the table with lots of higher budgets as well. I think Swansea are going through a bit of a strange stage so far in the season. It is not the best of runs for them. It wouldn't be surprising if Swansea do beat Preston, because it would be very typical of the Championship. But as a prediction, based on the forms, I think I've got to back Preston, you know. I'm going to go for a 2-1 victory to Preston. And that will really still make things very competitive for Preston in the top 6 place in the table. Now, next up is Queen's Park Rangers and Southampton. Now, certainly that's going to make things very difficult for my predictions, because literally minutes ago, as of recording this video, Will Still has been sacked as Southampton manager. They're currently in 21st. It wasn't a great performance against Preston. They lost by 2-0, still creating things, but just not taking their chances. And we've seen that a lot with sides, that when they're not full of confidence, sometimes just a fresh reset is what they need. And I think that is what the Southampton board is hoping for here. I don't know who they're going to go for in interim for now. I can't imagine they're going to approach anyone by Wednesday whenever they're playing. So, yeah, that just makes things really unpredictable and hard. But they're facing a Queen's Park Rangers side who conceded 4 goals last weekend. So maybe this is a perfect time for Southampton to play Queen's Park Rangers, actually. So, I don't know. I feel like both sides are going to go into this game trying to improve their defence, because I do think that's been an area that both sides have been struggling with. A 0-0 draw wouldn't shock me, but I'm going to go for a very minor manager bounce, and I'm going to go for a 1-0 away victory to Southampton. It can obviously have the reverse effect, of course, but as of just not really knowing what sort of squad and morale we're going to get with this side, I'm just going to predict that they will go have a bit of a more positive morale and they'll get a 1-0 win. Next up, we've got Sheffield Wednesday versus Norwich. Now, it is actually the bottom 2 sides playing up against each other here. Sheffield Wednesday, of course, picked up a draw against West Brom. I will say that's a good result for Sheffield Wednesday, but they do look a little bit doomed, I really got to admit. I mean, they're on -5 points in the moment. I think Sheffield United, or Southampton, I should say now, just above the relegation zone. I think they're on 12 points, so 17 points of safety. It's going to be very tough for Sheffield Wednesday to stay up, honestly. But I really hope, likewise for what I've been saying for Oxford, we get a spirited performance, and we have seen it in glimpses, especially in their last home game against Oxford, funnily enough, which unfortunately they didn't manage to get a good result in. Norwich are in freefall, just defeat after defeat after defeat, and still, by the time I'm recording this video, Liam Manning's still the manager. I'd be shocked if he's not moved on by the international break, especially if Norwich do not pick up a single win in their last 2 games before then. This, I do think, is going to be tough to predict, to be honest, because it's 2 sides I'm really not liking the look of this season. But I think with Norwich, they've got a very similar problem to Southampton, can create, but forward lines low in confidence and ultimately still conceding too many chances. I don't think I can back them. I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw here, maybe a little bit safe, but I don't know. I feel he does have a feeling that someone could maybe get something out of this, but I'm going to play it safe and go for a draw. And the final game to predict is Portsmouth versus Wrexham. What's going on with Portsmouth at the moment? They are really struggling. They're only 1 point above Southampton, who are 21st in the table. It is another defeat for them, and in fact a 4-0 defeat against Birmingham. It was certainly not a day for Portsmouth fans to remember in that point of view. They're playing a Wrexham side who looks like they have rejuvenated a little bit, and I was very curious to see how they were going to respond to getting knocked out of the Carabao Cup to Cardiff going into this next championship game, and my God, did they provide a response. They went behind, but the mentality to go back and to get something, brilliant. Kiefer Moore, unplayable in that game as well. He got a hat-trick. The defending wasn't particularly great from Coventry's point of view, but I said already it's not their most experienced and used defensive line, so naturally there are going to be gaps in, for defensive solidity of Coventry. But Kiefer Moore still has to be a clever player to get into the right place at the right time, and he took all 3 of his goals as well as he could. So I'm really, really pleased for him that he managed to have that breakthrough moment there. And I think with how well Wrexham have been on the road, I'm inclined to be backing them here, you know. Portsmouth are just going through a really tough stage, and I think they will come back good eventually. I think it will just feel very similar to Blackburn, because Blackburn, of course, had a very bad form, and now all of a sudden they're now winning consecutive games. I think Portsmouth are going to go through the bad side of that cycle first, unfortunately, before they get anything. Prediction, let's go 2-0 Wrexham. I've not predicted many Wrexham wins, I've got to be honest, in this channel, but I'm going to back them this time around, and we'll see if that works in their favour. But let me know what you think overall in the comments. And just like that, guys, week 14 has now been concluded. If you guys did go on to enjoy the video, please do like. It really does help. If we can get to 30 likes, that'd be amazing. Please do hit the subscribe button too, that really helps. And please share the channel too. All of that really helps, and it's tremendously appreciated. Thank you guys so much for watching. You guys are legendary if you're enjoying this video. And as always, I'll see you guys soon. Take care, everyone.